Hello, fellow educators. My self-talk topic today is memory. We have short-term memory and we have long-term memory. Our short-term memory is just that. We hold some information in our brain for a short amount of time before it's consolidated and sent to our long-term memory. Our short-term memory's capacity is pretty small. Miller's law says that we can hold 7 things, plus or minus 2, in our short-term memory at one time. And the research is showing that this number is actually decreasing. And I'm sure that that does not surprise anyone, that our capacity for short-term memory is decreasing. So if we're thinking about our students, some of whom have difficulty with this processing, there's not very much room to hold very much information at one time. So things like having to control my body and sit still, or my shoes are too tight, my tag is scratching me, when is lunch, all these things take up space that we need for learning. So when we're thinking about short-term memory, and then the difference between short-term memory is that small amount, long-term memory is vast. It's unknown how much can go into our long-term memory, but it takes some process to get it from short-term memory into long-term memory. Repetition and time and actually even sleep play a role in transferring information from short-term memory to long-term memory. So what can we do to help our students here? Obviously, we want them to take things out of short-term memory and put them in long-term memory for their life. The things that we can do to support that transfer from short-term memory to long-term memory is make things memorable. When things are attached to something we already know, we have an easier time converting it to long-term memory. Make things attached to emotion. Laughter actually is the best emotion to make that transfer from short-term to long-term memory. So if there's any way to attach something that elicits emotion, hopefully positive emotions, from the activity that we're doing, it'll help us turn it into long-term memory. Another thing we can talk about is our cognitive load. So cognitive load is how much information we can hold in our mind at one time before we reach that I can't do this anymore point. And we've all felt this. In fact, just a few short weeks ago, we probably all felt it when we had those several days of PD at the beginning of the school year. I don't know about you, but I was sitting there thinking, I have this to do and this to do and this to do, and oh yeah, don't forget to do this. And my mind was taken up with all of those things. And then I also had I'm not in school shape as far as waiting to eat and being still and not moving. And so my body started to get fidgety, and I started to think about, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't drink my whole water bottle because I have to wait, and those kinds of things. So kids have those same things come up for them. They're thinking about all of the things that they've got going on in the background. We can take pressure off of that cognitive load by putting supports in place. And some of the supports that we regularly see in classrooms, in fact, I see it in almost every classroom, is that schedule, whether it's visual or just written up on the board, so that we take off the load of when's recess coming, when's lunch coming, how long is this day going to be? So they're not thinking about those things. Another thing that we can do to support is to provide formulas. So our anchor charts are a great place for this. We can have formulas as far as math, which is an obvious one, or even in English and language arts, when we're saying, this part plus this part makes a compound word, or visuals about how to do contractions, or how to make an inference when we take the parts that we know with what we read with what we already know and make an inference. So all those things can help, and so can specialized notes. So I know that sometimes we're trying to teach kids to take notes, but they don't necessarily have the capacity to remember all those things. And some of our kids don't quite know how to spell things. So if we're using our cognitive load for the process of taking notes and how to spell things, we're not actually getting to the point of what it is we want them to remember. So if we give them notes where only those key words are taken out, we can free up the cognitive load to remember that important term or whatever it is that we're trying to get them to remember. So as far as short-term and long-term memory, what I want for you to remember is that short-term has a very limited amount of space. Repetition and attaching it to something that we already know, and strong emotions all help make that transfer to long-term memory. The more pathways we can get to the information, the better we can make that transfer. Thanks for listening to my self-talk. I'll be back with more.